Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey, everybody. This is John Corcoran with Dr. Jeremy Wise, and this episode is a little bit different. This is a live interview that we recorded at the Global Leadership Conference from Entrepreneurial organization, where some of the best entrepreneurs from around the globe share ideas and to learn about entrepreneurship. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses to give to and to connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships, helping you to run a podcast so that it generates a referral pipeline and ROI.
Yeah, I mean, John, after both of us have been podcasting for over a decade, the number one thing in our life is relationships. And we're always looking at ways to give to our best relationships. And we found no better way to do that over the past decade than to profile the people and companies we admire and shout from the rooftops what they're working on. And this interview is no different. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should go to rise25.com to learn more, or email us at support@rise25.com.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the interview.
Enjoy.
John Corcoran coming to you live from Honolulu, Hawaii at the Entrepreneurs Organization Global Leadership Conference. And my company is Rise 25. And we are here with Zhubei, who's from Beijing Metropolitan EO chapter. And Zhubei, tell us a little bit about what your company is and what your company does.
So the name of my company is called Venture Education. So me and my business partner, Julian Fisher, we started the company 12 years ago. He's also an EO member. So when we started, it was a very simple idea. I'm Chinese, he's British. He understands how international education works, and I understand Chinese students and parents. So we decided to make a company together. And for the last 12 years, we've pivoted our company so many times. So we started as bringing Chinese students to England for an authentic experience mixed with other countries, kids from other countries. And then we evolved into a learning center in Beijing. We hired people at the peak time. We had about 70 staff from all around.
Was peak, was this right before COVID?
It was before COVID. It was before that wipeout policy that China had on education industry. Not sure if any of you heard about it, but some of the publicly listed companies like New Oriental had their market value vanished, probably 95% overnight.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a big hit on our industry, and that was when my daughter was sick, had a medical situation. At a point that the doctor was worried that she had blood cancer because her platelet was low, and it was a time when I was at my personal low because I was constantly worried for my daughter, checking into the hospitals.
And all this happened while you were going through that?
And whilst that happened, when my company was falling apart, I had to sack most of the team because the policy overnight said we are not legal anymore, although we held a legal license. And a 1,000 square meter learning center with the theater, with the gym, with classrooms, that was just designed right after I had given birth to my daughter. And so that was the first project after my baby, and that was my second baby, because I had 3 months off. And after the first month, I thought, well, why not we start a new center? And so it was a big hit, and it was a very difficult time because you have the team that you love so much and you trust so much, and vice versa, and you had to let them go, and you had to be that person sitting in that office and telling them, I am sorry, I have to let you go.
Devastating.
And if it was any mistake that I made, and if I look back, and I thought that I had to be strong and I had to stay indifferent to tell people because it's a policy situation. But looking back, and I thought that probably I did not allow myself or the team to be sad about it, to moan about the death of something we built together. And if I had the chance to do it again, I would have probably done it in a way where I just hug everyone and have a good cry, because that's exactly what I needed at the time. So the rise up was when then me and my business partner decided that we have to separate the eggs into two different baskets. So at the time, we had already been providing services for the British Embassy and for some international schools and universities. So we decided to build a consultancy company that serves only the universities, schools, and other education institutions. So it's going to be a B2B business. And he loves data analysis and report. So he went into that direction, which we hope that can scale and also kind of counterbalances the risk from, the direct market. And then I asked myself many times over during that time, and I said, if there is only me left, and if there is one thing that I would love to do, and I still want to get up in the morning, what would it be? And my answer was, I have to be with the students and I have to be with the people. And that's what I did. And so I got together some of my clients that have stayed with me for a long time, and their kids already gone to university. And so I got them into the room and I asked them the question, what do you think is the most valuable thing that I have given you over the past however years?
Which is a great way to find out what your customers want from you.
Exactly. And the collected answer was the companionship, the mentorship, and just holding hands. It was not the training, it was not the tutoring, it wasn't any of those things that I sold for money, right? Yeah. And that was a moment that I realized what I loved doing the most is holding hands, because of my own experience that, I'll talk about it in another time, that I just really have so much empathy for the kids and for the parents. None of them are bad people. Yeah. They have different perspectives. They have different ways of handling these things, and I know how to help them because I've been there. Yeah. And so
quite the transition into something completely new. Yeah.
However, I don't think it's a transition because I had always been doing that support with the parents anyways. I just never charged them for that service. I just did it like a freebie. Yeah. And so instead, after that, I kind of turned it around and gave and made my most valuable input my current product.
Was this before COVID?
This was basically during COVID.
During COVID, yes,
okay.
2021. Okay. So that's quite a pivot for you during that time. Were you in EO at the time?
I wasn't.
Okay. And reflecting now on what EO provides value, like how it provides value to you, a lot of times people join EO after having gone through some kind of like really difficult transition like that. And so how does it serve you now?
I would say when I joined EO, it was 2022. And then that was a time I felt because I had just gone through the crisis, I made, somehow like put the ship together, still sailing. But I felt so like my energy, my motivation was so much sucked out of me because you've gone through so much and you just had to stick there. But then I just needed some kind of holding, someone to like be there for me. And the first thing I did after joining EO was GLC in Cape Town. And that was transformational.
Just like this, it was the equivalent, but in Cape Town.
Yes, just like EO in Hawaii. And I remember the theme was called Elevate, and that's exactly what I needed. And it wasn't just the GLC, it was the speakers, it was the amazing speakers. Some of the speakers we actually managed to bring to China and to the people who couldn't go to Cape Town. It was just that spirit. It was a spirit of forgiveness. It was a spirit of belief. It was a spirit of that you work on something not for the success, but for the pursuit. And that was the spirit of South Africa. And that was a spirit that filtered through all the EO events. And I still feel it till today. And I think to have a community and like the theme of this year, Ohana, believe, belong, beyond. And to me, I think the sequence goes belong. You feel belonging, and that's where you start to, have the belief rising in you. And once you have the belief rising in you, then you go beyond.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Where can people go to learn more about you?
Just follow Venture Education on LinkedIn. We are launching our new data platform. It's School Data without the D, so it's Schoolata. I don't have a personal LinkedIn, but I have a Instagram. Okay. So it's Zhubei, my name, ZHUBEI 26. I just picked a random number. I'm not actually 26. So If you're from China, then you can follow my channels. I have about 10,000 followers watching me doing interviews, dialogues with principals of schools, education people, impactful people in education, psychologists, interesting, fun students. Thank you so much for the interview.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hey, John Corcoran coming to you live from the Entrepreneurs Organization Global Leadership Conference 2025 in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm here with Adam Horowitz, who is from the EO Los Angeles chapter. And Adam, you've been in EO for about 15 years now. What is the name of your company? And tell me a little bit about what your company does.
It's Lever Capital Partners, LEVER, short for essentially leverage or leverage capital. And we arrange capital for commercial real estate projects across the United States. Okay. Essentially, we're like a residential mortgage broker, but for large commercial projects.
Okay. Let's see. You said 15 years. Okay.
I started about 15 years ago, and I've been EO for 10.
Okay.
So it took a little while to kind of find this place and join.
And so 2010 was still kind of on the back end of that whole mortgage meltdown area. Yeah. What was that like? What was it like starting a company in that space at that time?
It was really incredible. I was working for a company doing exactly what I do now. There were a handful of people. We had a Harvard MBA, we had a NYU MBA, we had a Columbia master's person.
So some real slackers.
Michigan MBA, and the market crashed, and they all sat there twiddling their thumbs. I was blown away by the fact that here were people, they had no strategy. They were deal people, they were good at their job, but there was no strategy. They weren't communicating, they weren't talking. And then when that whole thing blew up and I decided to start my own company, I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way, because the market will go up and it will go down, and need to be able to find a community of people that I could talk to help try to figure out how to navigate things when things turn sideways, which eventually they will.
And so you started, and you did about 5 years before you found your way to EO. What were the early years like? What were some of the challenges for you when you started the company?
I think just nobody to talk to. So, I liked strategy and I liked talking about these things, but I didn't know who to talk to about it. The people that were working for me at the time weren't people really to have those conversations with. I didn't have friends or relatives that were owning their own businesses. All of my friends growing up in college and grad school, they were all just workers like I was in the past. And I was kind of on an island and didn't really know what to do. Yeah. So a lot of times what we do is do nothing. The decision is to not make a decision.
Yeah. So you find your way to EO, and what role has EO played for you in the last 10 years?
I think the biggest thing, and I talk to people about this all the time, whether or not you're entrepreneurs or not, is building that community. I actually had that conversation this morning with one of my interns. We have 3 interns every semester from USC's real estate program, intern for us. And a lot of times what I'm providing for them is just understanding about how the world works. And I talked this morning with somebody about building his own community, even though he's 20 years old. Start building that community, because what I've noticed more so from anything, from the first time I went to an EO event, was that the guy that I was talking to, and I told this story this morning, I was shocked to find out that he had hired the speaker that had spoken. And when I asked him about it, he said, I had hired that guy and I hired that woman. I was blown away. I had no idea that people were hiring all these people. And he said to me, you need a team of people. Mm-hmm. You can only be an expert in so many things, and you need to supplement yourself with experts from around the community. And that has really been an eye-opener and has really changed the way that I do business.
Yeah. Now, I know you also have a bit of an expertise in forum, care a lot about that, the forum structure. Yeah. Talk a little bit about what you see as best practices, what leads forums to be successful versus not successful.
Wow. I mean, how many minutes do we have, or hours or days?
You have 35 seconds.
Oh, okay, 35, no. But this is clearly the thing I'm most passionate about within EO, and I think, what you learn from a young age is like you're either moving towards the things or away from the things that as a child you needed or didn't need. And this is certainly true for me. So I was always looking for that community and looking for connection. And Forum really provides that opportunity to is really to help, to find people to help you solve your own problems, right? I am not here to solve your problem. We can go out for a drink and we can go do that. But when we're in Forum, what I'm going to do is help you get to that really deep why question and then give you all the tools necessary to go out and solve your own problem. And I've seen myself and then other people within me to help make life-changing conversations with people. And I had one of them this morning at 6 a.m. getting coffee this morning with somebody else who was also an early bird. And we were talking about process and structure and stuff like that. And all of these things I got from EO.
Yeah. And you also have been involved in leadership. This at Global Leadership Conference is for emerging leaders. who want to get involved in their board and then take some of those leadership skills and bring them back to their company. Why have you gotten involved on that level with leading in your chapter?
So I've been on the board the whole time I've been in EO, 10, 11 years. The first time I was voluntold, which is a word, a portmanteau that we all get to understand, along with intimacy, which I love. That's another portmanteau I love.
What is that one word?
Instant intimacy. So, but with being voluntold, I joined EO. It was I was in the Vegas chapter initially, and it was a small chapter, and the guy says, "Oh, you should do forum. It's easy." And I was in the EO like 2 weeks, and turned out,
it's typically a role that people are they've been in EO for a little while before they take on that role.
So people were yelling at me and screaming at me and cursing at me from things that had happened a year or two before, which obviously I wasn't involved with. But it turned out that being on the board, and I share this with people all the time, has been the best part of EO for me. Mostly because I get to see other leaders leading other people. And we always have these challenges of how do we get people to follow us when they don't work for us? We're not paying them. So how do I build that rapport within people to get them on my side, to get them to say, we're going to do it this way because it's going to help everybody involved in that process. And I've had multiple roles within the organization. Forum happens to be the one that I'm most passionate about and I'm happiest to be in. But in general, I would say, these are the people who have drank the Kool-Aid the most. These are the people that are really interested in up-leveling not only their own lives, but their families and their friends and the people who work for them. And to me, that's a really exciting comment. When I talk to somebody and I do some coaching, which I love doing, I am not here to just help you. I'm here to help you help everybody else.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Adam, this has been great. Where can people go to learn more about you and check you out?
Levercp.com. I'm not a social media person, so I don't know. You could find my one picture on Instagram.
Okay.
But if you want to reach me at my company, LeverCP, Horowitz at levercp.com is the easiest way to do it.
Adam, thanks so much.
Thank you. Cool.
Hey, John Corcoran here, coming to you live from Entrepreneurs Organization Global Leadership Conference in Honolulu, Hawaii, 2025. I'm here with Paul Carroll, who has a wealth management firm. Paul, tell us about what your company is and what your company does.
My company is Avion Wealth. We're based in Houston, Texas. We have clients throughout the United States. What we do is, in addition to helping our clients protect their wealth, we also help them mitigate their taxes, take care of their heirs, protect their assets from being unjustly taken, and maximize the impact of charitable planning if that's important to them.
You started that firm about 20 years ago. How did it get started? Tell us the origin story behind it.
Well, to do that, I have to roll the tape back a little before that. I came to the United States in the fall of 1979. I was 17 years old, and I showed up with $200 in a toothbrush. I really had no idea what I was doing, but before long, I was in the Air Force, and that was my avenue for getting an undergraduate degree. When I got out of the Air Force, I didn't know what to do next, so I did what you normally do in such a situation. I went to grad school to study finance. Got out of grad school, ended up with a company called Smith Barney. They made money the old-fashioned way, and that was a disappointing experience. It was really dialing for dollars. I was disillusioned, and I decided that I was going to go ahead and learn how to fly for a living because there was a quote-unquote pilot shortage at the time. Well, I learned something about shortages, about when you're ready. That shortage is long gone. I entered the industry at what was the worst hiring drought in the history of aviation, before or since. And 7 jobs and 7,000 hours later, I ended up being picked up by Continental Airlines. So finally, I made it. I was home free. And yet it was just 4 short years after that, the September 11 hit, blew a hole in the side of the airline, the industry, and my career. So after being forced to move to Houston, I was then kindly furloughed. And that furlough really motivated me to decide to look for something where I had a little more control over my destiny. I love flying. I hate unions. I hate seniority. And so I was ready to do something where I have more control. And so after a little bit of homework, research, and due diligence, that's when I started Avion Wealth.
Yeah. And so you started it, I guess, after 9/11 then. We had a couple of years of rough economic times. Was that a tough time to start a company?
So it was an interesting time. I had no idea what I was doing. I was writing checks to the company anyway. I really had my head down. What really was a rough time was 2008. I mean, we were really focused on airline pilots. What a lot of people don't remember about 2008 is every single airline in North America except Continental and Southwest filed for bankruptcy. Well, we were working their pensions, their retirement plans, and they all were wiped out. Continental's wasn't wiped out, it was frozen. Southwest didn't have a pension plan. So my business model had to pivot pretty damn rapidly after the 2008 financial crisis.
And what did you pivot into?
Well, we basically moved into leaders with a growth mindset, C-suite executives and successful business leaders.
What about, so there's COVID 2020. Did that affect your company? What was that period like?
Well, that was an interesting time for us. In 2018, we decided to rebrand to what is now Avion Wealth. That was a 2-year exercise. And we were frankly terrified it wouldn't become like the classic Coke exercise, which was a disaster. The new Coke, sorry.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of COVID is we did the brand switch on January the 1st, and by March the 30th, everyone had long since forgotten about Avion's rebranding. It kind of helped with the rebranding. It didn't hurt our business at all. People needed people to talk to. And of course, about March 29, 30, the markets collapsed, somewhat like they are right now. And for my industry, that means people needed guidance, they needed safety, and they needed sanity.
What about for you? You've been in Entrepreneurs Organization for some time. What role has that played for you as an entrepreneur?
It's been interesting. I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't have a book of business when I started my business. And when I discovered EO, it was like finding a long-lost tribe of interesting people who had shared experiences. And so for me, it was very meaningful. And I've enjoyed getting more and more involved. Now I'm in a bridge chapter. I'm the finance chair, of course. And it continues to be a great value add to my life.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time. Where can people go to learn more about you and Avion Wealth?
AvionWealth.com.
All right. Thanks so much. Hey, John Corcoran here at the Entrepreneurs Organization Global Leadership Conference here in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, 2025. And I'm here with Jeff Luther, who's from beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, long ways away. Jeff, tell us about what your company is and what your company does.
Home Probe is the name of the company. It's a home inspection company. So we're in the business of real estate inspections. Been around for 22 years.
Okay, cool. And take me back to 22 years ago when you started that out. If you can remember back that far, what were some of the challenges when you started it out?
Okay, so one day I made this really bad decision, and it was to start my own company. The biggest challenge is the business that I'm in is very personal, so it typically is tied to the personality. And the hardest challenge that I had over the entire course of the business was getting referral sources to be comfortable working with someone that wasn't me, replicating myself.
Yeah. And so that was that in the early years that you were trying to figure that out? Did you find a magic solution that everyone here can learn from you?
Yeah, early on, I was as busy as I wanted to be. I was, for lack of a better term, I was printing money, but I had more money than time, so I stayed incredibly busy. And I was always afraid of allowing someone else in that business to take my place, to work with me. And ultimately, I realized no one's going to do it perfectly. And if they did, they would own their own business. So I had to be resigned to the fact that about 80%, if I could get 80% of my expectation, then that was good.
That's good enough. And so you've been through some real downturns during that period of time. 2008 comes to mind with the real estate downturn. What was that like for you being in the real estate industry?
Oh, in 2022 to today. Don't forget that one.
Yeah, okay, we'll get to it.
So it was a long, bloody road, honestly, 2008. It was, there were days I had to pick up the phone to make sure we still had a dial tone. It was just empty. It was a real empty period of time.
Did you have a larger group of people? Did you have to do layoffs?
Yes, to both of those things. That's when I was kind of accelerating up. So you figure 2006, my company was in Atlanta, and if you had a pulse and a phone number, you could do business in real estate. So we were hiring, we're on the way up, and then it was like the bottom fell out.
Oh, wow. And then you mentioned 2022 to today.
Yeah, 2022 to today, as interest rates started to go up. Coming off the pandemic was the busiest our business has ever been. And we went from, our business is down almost 60% in a little less than 3 years.
That's a tough adjustment. You've been in EO for a while. What role has EO played for you going through these types of difficult periods?
So I'll start, EO's been huge. I'll start with, I started out in an accelerator, bouncing around the 850 mark, had been for a few years, and I was an accelerator for less than 4 months to get to the $1 million mark. If that tells the tale.
Yeah, so it helped you break through some barriers.
Yeah, that's an understatement for sure. Yep.
Yeah. And then how has EO played a role for you?
You know, it's Forum has been huge. It's a great think tank. It's nice to know you're not on your own little island. You feel like your problems are unique, and when you have other folks that share the same, you realize you're not alone. And the way that I put it to people, it's a place to celebrate the wins and commiserate the losses.
Yeah. Jeff, thanks so much for your time. Where can people go to learn more about you and learn about your company?
JD Luther 2.0 for Instagram, and you can learn about me at jeffluther.com.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.